My boyfriend banished me to to the couch. Until I apologized for something I never did. I simply said, okay. He had no idea he'd just ended our relationship. My name is Clara Whitmore. I was 38 years old, a senior project manager, and I had spent nearly 8 years building a life with a man who could turn silence into a weapon and jealousy into a courtroom. Looking back, it's almost ridiculous that everything began with a single cardboard box. I came home late on a Thursday, still wearing my blazer, laptop bag on my shoulder, when I saw our new neighbor struggling beside the curb. Her name was Melissa. She was 23, maybe 24, and had moved in 2 doors down with her boyfriend earlier that week. She was trying to drag a huge moving box out of a hatchback by herself. The bottom sagged. One side had already ripped open. You need a hand? I asked. She looked embarrassed. Only if you don't mind. My boyfriend is on a work call, and I thought I could do it myself. I set my bag down, grabbed one side of the box, and helped her carry it to her porch. That was the entire interaction. She thanked me. I told her trash pickup came early on Fridays. She laughed and said she was still learning the rhythm of the street. When I walked back home and opened the front door, Derek was already standing in the hallway. He did not say hello. He did not ask about my day. He just looked past me toward Melissa's house, jaw tight, arms folded, like he had caught me walking out of a motel. So that's what we're doing now? I blinked. What? You and the new girl. I laughed once because I thought he was joking. He wasn't joking. Don't laugh at me, Clara. I helped her carry a box. You were smiling at her. She said thank you. You were standing close. We were carrying the same box. He stepped closer. Don't twist this. I saw what I saw. I took a breath. Derek, she lives with her boyfriend. I met her for 3 minutes. I helped a neighbor. That's all that happened. His eyes narrowed. You expect me to believe that? I expect you to believe me. For a second, something flickered in his expression. It wasn't doubt or guilt. It was control. Then he pointed toward the living room. You're sleeping on the couch until you apologize. I stared at him. He said it like he was handing down a sentence, like our bedroom was his to grant or revoke. Excuse me? You heard me. You can come back when you admit you crossed a line. My pulse beat in my throat. I wanted to argue. I wanted to list every ridiculous detail back to him. But suddenly I understood what was really happening. This was never about finding the truth. Derek wanted surrender, not answers, and arguing wasn't going to change that. So I simply nodded. Okay. Derek froze. Okay? Yes, okay. You're not even going to defend yourself? I already did. You're not going to apologize? No. His face changed. He had expected tears, panic, maybe pleading. He had expected me to beg for permission to sleep beside him. Instead, I walked past him, went upstairs, took one pillow from our bed, one blanket from the linen closet, and came back down. He watched me from the stairs. You're seriously doing this? I spread the blanket over the couch. Apparently, I'm being punished. Clara. Derek. His mouth opened, then closed. That first night was awful. The couch looked expensive, but slept like folded plywood. Every time I turned, the leather stuck cold against my arm. At 3:12 a.m., I woke with my spine aching and heard Derek pause at the top of the stairs. I kept my eyes closed. By morning, I was making coffee in the kitchen when he came down in his work shirt. Ready to be normal? I was normal yesterday. He exhaled sharply. Ready to apologize? No. Then enjoy the couch. I'll manage. By the third night, managing felt like being slowly folded in half. So I made a practical decision. We had a guest room upstairs that no guest had used in almost 2 years. It had an old futon, 3 plastic bins of holiday decorations, Derek's forgotten golf clubs, and half a closet full of things neither of us wanted badly enough to donate. I carried my pillow upstairs and slept there. The futon was ugly. The room smelled faintly like dust and cardboard, but it had a door. That mattered more than comfort. The next morning, Derek noticed. Couch wasn't good enough for you? No. Then apologize. No. He gave a small, smug smile. Fine. Enjoy your little storage room. I looked around at the cracked lampshade, the bare wall, the boxes stacked under the window. And for the first time in 3 days, I smiled back. Because he had just given me an idea. Derek thought discomfort would break me. He forgot I was very good at making broken things functional. That afternoon during lunch, I opened my personal savings account. I had been putting money aside for a vacation we kept delaying because Derek always found a reason to say the timing was bad. I had more than enough saved for what I wanted to do. I ordered a queen-size memory foam mattress, blackout curtains, a desk, and a small cream rug that made the room feel less like a punishment and more like a beginning. By the end of the week, delivery boxes started arriving. Derek watched the first mattress box slide across the porch like it was a threat. What is that? My back support. You bought a mattress? Yes. For the guest room? For my room. His face went still. I said again, softer this time. He gave a cold laugh. You're being dramatic. No, I said, signing for the delivery. I'm being comfortable. That was the first time Derek looked genuinely unsure, not because he regretted what he'd done, but because he hadn't expected me to adapt. And somehow, that felt like the first honest thing that had happened all week. That evening, while he sat in our bedroom pretending to watch television, I spent 2 hours assembling the bed. The room was still plain, but the new mattress transformed it immediately. That night, I finally slept through until morning. The next morning, Derek was pouring cereal when I walked into the kitchen. You seem cheerful. I slept well. I guess expensive mattresses help guilty consciences. They help backs. He waited for more. I didn't give it to him. By the fourth day, another delivery truck arrived with a 55-inch television. Derek was working from home and watched through the living room window while it disappeared upstairs. 5 minutes later, he appeared outside my door. You seriously bought a television? Yes. To hide in there? To relax. You already have one downstairs. I don't spend much time downstairs anymore. You made that choice. No, you made that choice. For the first time, he had no quick answer. Over the next week, packages kept arriving. A leather recliner from Marketplace, a solid oak desk, floating shelves, a mini refrigerator, a microwave. Everything came from my own savings. Money I had earned. Money we had always agreed belonged to the individual after bills were paid. None of those purchases were about revenge. I was simply adapting to the life he had forced me into. If Derek insisted I didn't belong in our bedroom, then I would build a place where I did belong. Every evening after work became another small project. Hanging shelves, running cables neatly behind the desk, organizing books I'd never had room to display. For the first time in years, I was decorating entirely for myself, without compromising or defending every decision. Slowly, the room stopped feeling like exile and started feeling like home. A week later, Derek finally walked halfway inside. He didn't ask permission. He simply pushed the door open while I was unpacking books. You've spent a lot of money. My money. This is ridiculous. I disagree. It's supposed to be temporary. You decided that you could end this today. I know. Then apologize. I closed the box in front of me. I'm not refusing because I'm stubborn. Then why? Because every apology tells you your accusation was true. If I apologize for helping a neighbor carry a box, what happens the next time I speak to a waitress, a coworker, a cashier, another woman asking for directions? His face hardened. That's different. No, it isn't. He left. The door closed harder than necessary. 2 nights later, I was sitting in the recliner watching a movie when he knocked. Dinner. I'm okay. I made your favorite pasta. I already ate. You could at least come eat with me. I wasn't invited to sleep beside you. Neither of us spoke for a moment. You did that to yourself. I almost answered. Instead, I unmuted the movie. The following Saturday, Derek deliberately put his mother on speakerphone. Mom, he sighed, she's completely lost it. What happened now? She turned the guest room into her own apartment. Why is she living in the guest room? Because she's being difficult. His mother hesitated. Why was she sleeping there in the first place? I asked her to leave our bedroom. What for? I caught her flirting. Doing what? Helping the new neighbor carry a moving box. Even through the speaker, I heard his mother sigh. Derek. What? That's all? You didn't see the way she looked at that girl. Honey, maybe you should apologize. I called for support. I'm supporting your relationship. You always take her side. I'm taking the side that makes sense. He ended the call without saying goodbye. A minute later, he appeared outside my room. You told her. I've barely spoken to your mother this month. He didn't believe me. Or maybe he did. Either way, he couldn't admit it. The next morning, I hired someone to install a digital keypad lock on my bedroom door. Nothing extravagant. Just enough to keep my space private. As the installer packed his tools, Derek came upstairs. What is this? A lock. I can see that. You've been walking into my room without knocking. This is my house too. It is. So take the lock off. No. You don't get to lock me out. You locked me out first. I did not. You removed me from our bedroom. That's different. No, it isn't. He stared at the keypad as though it personally insulted him. You've gone too far. I typed the code. The lock clicked softly. I don't think I've gone far enough. That evening, I sat inside my room reading while rain tapped against the window. I wasn't thinking about winning anymore. I was thinking about how strange it felt to realize I'd spent years trying to make one room feel like home, only to discover I felt safer in the smallest room in the house. Outside, Derek stopped in front of my door. His hand touched the keypad. He didn't knock. He walked away. The lock changed something in me. For the first time since he'd banished me from our bedroom, I stopped waking up wondering how to fix us. Instead, I woke up wondering what I wanted my own life to look like. Derek noticed. You've gotten comfortable, he said one morning as we crossed paths in the kitchen. I have. You don't even seem upset anymore. I was upset 6 weeks ago. And now? Now I'm adapting. I never wanted this. You started it. I wanted you to fight for us. I did. When? The moment I refused to confess to something I never did. He shook his head and walked away. He still couldn't hear the difference between defending myself and abandoning him. A few days later, he tried household chores. For years, we'd naturally divided everything. He usually cooked. I handled laundry. He vacuumed. I organized bills. It wasn't perfect, but it worked. Until one Thursday evening. I opened the laundry room to find my folded clothes sitting in a basket outside the door. A handwritten note rested on top. Do your own laundry. The note didn't surprise me. I carried the basket upstairs. The next afternoon, I found a barely used compact washer and dryer online. By Saturday, they were installed neatly against one wall of my room. The plumber glanced around. You making an apartment up here? Something like that. When Derek came home, he stopped cold in the doorway. You bought a washer? Yes. You're unbelievable. I got tired of carrying baskets downstairs. This is ridiculous. So was being accused of cheating because I helped someone move. He left without answering. The next attack came through dinner. Derek loved cooking. Sunday pasta, Tuesday tacos, Friday steaks. It had always been one of the ways he showed affection. Now every meal became another message. One plate, one glass, one place setting. Nothing for me. The first night, I ordered takeout. The second, I picked up groceries. By the third weekend, I'd started meal prepping. A small air fryer arrived 2 days later. Then a coffee machine. The room smelled like fresh coffee every morning. It bothered Derek more than it should have. You've got everything in there now. Almost. What else could you possibly need? A plant. He stared. I was joking. I wasn't. The following afternoon, a tall peace lily appeared beside my desk. One Saturday morning, Derek announced we were having company. My sister's coming over, and Vanessa. Vanessa had been Derek's closest friend since college. She'd always been fair with me, so when she walked in and immediately glanced toward my room, I knew Derek had given her his version first. So, she said carefully, can we all sit down? The three of us settled into the living room. Derek spoke first. Tell her this has gone too far. Vanessa frowned. What exactly has gone too far? She turned the guest room into her own apartment. Vanessa looked at me. I turned the room I live in into somewhere I can actually live. She turned back to Derek. Why is she living there? She's making a point. No, I said. You made the point. Vanessa listened while I explained everything, helping Melissa, the accusation, the couch, the bedroom, the ultimatum. Derek added his version, and I didn't interrupt. When we finished, Vanessa sat quietly. Derek, she said at last, you really asked her to leave your bedroom because she carried a box? It wasn't the box. What was it? The way she looked at Melissa. You've met Melissa, right? I don't need to. You do know she moved in with her boyfriend? That doesn't matter. Vanessa leaned back. It really does. Derek crossed his arms. So you're taking her side too. I'm taking the side that sounds reasonable. He stood. Forget it. He disappeared upstairs. Vanessa stayed behind. I'm sorry, she said. You didn't do anything. She lowered her voice. Has he always been this jealous? I almost said no. Then I remembered the coworker he'd questioned, the waiter he'd accused of flirting with me, the fitness instructor, the grocery cashier, the hotel concierge. The pattern had been there. I simply hadn't wanted to see it. I think he's been like this for longer than I admitted. Vanessa's face softened. I was afraid you'd say that. 3 days later, Derek escalated again. He cornered me outside the upstairs bathroom. I'm taking the master bathroom. What? You use the hallway bathroom from now on. Okay. He frowned. That's all? Yes. No argument? No. You seriously don't care? I'll move my things. His confidence shifted into confusion. He'd expected resistance. Instead, he watched me gather my toothbrush, skincare, shampoo, and towels and move into the hallway bathroom. It was smaller, but it was only 6 steps from my room. The next weekend, I upgraded it. A rainfall shower head, new mirrors, fresh towels, better lighting, plants, and a bamboo bath tray. Meanwhile, Derek had claimed the master bathroom, which also meant he was the only one cleaning it. A week later, I heard him muttering while scrubbing toothpaste stains from the sink. I quietly closed my door before he noticed me smiling. Then life handed him a problem he never expected. His company announced a hybrid work schedule, 2 days a week from home. He needed an office. There was only one logical space. He knocked gently one Tuesday morning. We need to talk. I opened the door halfway. About what? I'll be working from home. I heard. I need an office. I hope you find one. His patience disappeared. The guest room. My room. You know what I mean. I do. So move your stuff. No. I need that space. I needed a bedroom. This is different. You've used that sentence a lot lately. He sighed. I'll let you back into our bedroom. I never wanted permission. If you give me the room. And apologize? His silence answered for him. Then nothing has changed. His voice turned cold. You're choosing a room over our relationship. No, I'm choosing self-respect over control. He slammed the door so hard that one of the framed photos in the hallway tilted sideways. That night, rain tapped against the window while the TV played softly in the background. The peace lily beside my desk had started growing new leaves. The irony wasn't lost on me. The only thing thriving inside that house was the room he'd meant as my punishment. By the 7th week, our house no longer felt like one home. It felt like 2 countries sharing a border. We crossed paths, we exchanged practical sentences, we paid bills. For a while, I convinced myself we'd reached an uneasy balance. I couldn't have been more wrong. People who need control rarely stop when control no longer works. They look for another way in. It started on a Tuesday. I came home early after a client canceled our afternoon meeting. The moment I walked upstairs, something felt wrong. My bedroom door was open. The keypad lock hung crooked. One screw lay on the carpet. Inside, everything looked almost normal. My blanket had been folded differently. The books on my shelves had been rearranged by height. The peace lily sat on the opposite side of my desk. My television was unplugged. The mini refrigerator door stood slightly open, and the food inside had spoiled. Then I noticed the note. 1 sheet of printer paper placed in the center of my desk. Room inspected for property damage. There was no logo, no signature, and no date. The only person who could have written it was Derek. I called him immediately. What? He answered. You went into my room. I checked the room. You broke the lock. I needed to inspect it. For what? You've been making changes. With my own money. It's still part of the house. So is the bedroom. He paused. I didn't break anything. I looked at the loose screws beside my foot. You removed my lock. You can't prove that. His confidence surprised me. Not because he sounded innocent, but because he genuinely believed I had no evidence. Okay, I said. Then I ended the call. I spent the evening documenting everything. The damaged keypad, the loose screws, the unplugged refrigerator, the spoiled food, the note. Then I opened a folder on my laptop titled Bedroom. Inside were screenshots stretching back almost 2 months. His texts, his ultimatums, his demands that I apologize, messages admitting he'd remove me from the bedroom, photos of the couch, receipts for every item I'd purchased, delivery confirmations, timestamps from the security camera inside my room showing when someone entered while I was at work. I hadn't started collecting evidence because I expected a legal battle. I'd started because I was beginning to doubt my own memory. Gaslighting slowly teaches you to question your own memory, which was exactly why I had started documenting everything. That evening, Derek came home looking unusually relaxed. Feeling better? He asked. I continued chopping vegetables. About what? The inspection. What inspection? The one you got so upset about. I wiped my hands on a towel. Who exactly inspected my room? His confidence cracked. Give me the company's name. He hesitated. There isn't one. I own half this house. So do I. I can check any room. You can ask. I don't need permission. You do if you're entering my private space. His voice rose. We're not roommates. No, we're supposed to be partners. The words landed harder than I expected because they reminded me of everything we were no longer acting like. Partners don't remove each other's locks, I said. He didn't answer. He grabbed a bottle of water and walked upstairs. The conversation was over, but something inside me had ended with it. The following morning, I called an attorney. Not because I was ready to end the relationship, because I needed to understand my options. The consultation lasted just under an hour. The lawyer listened carefully before asking one question. Has he admitted in writing that he removed you from the bedroom? Several times. And do you have those messages? Everyone. Good. Keep documenting. Should I file anything? Not yet. Right now, you're establishing a pattern. The attorney was right. By then, it wasn't just one argument anymore. It had become a pattern. 3 days later, a certified envelope arrived for me. Inside was a typed letter from Derek listing what he called new household expectations. The master bedroom belonged to him. The master bathroom belonged to him. The guest room remained temporary. No overnight visitors. No modifications to shared property. No locks installed without mutual agreement. At the bottom, he had signed his full name. It looked less like a letter from a boyfriend and more like terms from a landlord. When he came home, I held it up. What is this? A compromise. You didn't ask me before writing rules. I shouldn't have to. There it is. What do you mean? That's the problem. You think every decision starts with you. I make practical decisions. No, you make unilateral ones. He opened his mouth, closed it, and walked away. The following weekend, he tried a different approach. Flowers. My favorite takeout. A bottle of wine we'd shared on our anniversary. He placed everything on the kitchen island. I've been thinking, he said. So have I. Maybe we both overreacted. Maybe. Let's go back to normal. You first. His shoulders stiffened. What? Tell me you were wrong. Say you falsely accuse me. His eyes drifted toward the floor. I can't. Why? Because I still think something happened. There it was. The truth he'd been avoiding all along. He still cared more about winning than repairing what he'd broken. For the first time since this nightmare began, he looked frightened. Not because he thought he was losing the argument, but because he realized he was losing me. He reached toward my hand. I stepped back. The movement lasted less than a second, but it said everything. That night, I sat alone in my room with the lawyer's business card beside my laptop. Outside my window, Melissa and her boyfriend were laughing while unloading groceries. They had no idea a single cardboard box had exposed every hidden crack inside my relationship. The letter changed Derek, but not in the way I'd hoped. He didn't spend that week reflecting on what he'd done. Instead, he started looking for a different way to win me back without admitting he was wrong. For nearly a week, he acted like the version of himself I'd fallen in love with years earlier. He made coffee before I woke up. He cleaned the kitchen without mentioning it. He left white lilies outside my bedroom door. There wasn't even a note, just a bouquet of white lilies outside my door. For a brief moment, I wondered if he had finally accepted reality. Then he ruined it. One evening, he knocked gently. Can we talk? I opened the door but stayed inside my room. What about? I don't want us to keep living like strangers. I didn't choose this. I know. It was the first time he'd admitted even that much. I miss you. The words sounded sincere, painfully sincere. 8 years together doesn't disappear because someone says one terrible thing. It disappears because they keep choosing that terrible thing over and over again. So I asked the only question that mattered. Do you still believe I flirted with Melissa? His face changed just enough for me to know. I still think there was something inappropriate. I closed my eyes for 1 second. When I opened them again, whatever hope I'd been holding quietly folded itself away. There isn't anything else to talk about. I closed the door. 2 days later, I came home from work carrying groceries and heard unfamiliar voices in the kitchen. Laughter, glasses clanking, someone complimenting the smell of roasted chicken. Then I rounded the corner. Melissa looked up first. Her smile vanished. Beside her sat her boyfriend, Ethan, holding a wine glass halfway to his lips. Across from them, Derek beamed. Clara, perfect timing. What is this? Dinner. I can see that. I invited the neighbors. Melissa looked increasingly uncomfortable. We didn't know. It's just a casual evening, Derek interrupted. You've never even spoken to them before. I thought it was time. His smile looked rehearsed. Too perfect. Too bright. Then he pulled out a chair. Come sit. I didn't move. Melissa spoke carefully. Honestly, we should probably explain. Derek laughed. No need. There actually is. She turned to me. When Derek invited us yesterday, he said he wanted everyone to clear the air. What air? He said there'd been an awkward misunderstanding because he thought you and I had become close. The room went still. Melissa continued. I told him there wasn't anything to clear up because we've only spoken once. My boyfriend was with me when he called. Ethan nodded. He mostly kept saying he wanted to prove there were no hard feelings. I turned back to Derek. You called them. I wanted us all to move forward. No, you wanted witnesses. That's not fair. You thought if Melissa said nothing happened, I'd finally admit I overreacted. Melissa placed her napkin on the table. I think we should leave. No, Derek said quickly. Please stay. She stood anyway. I don't think this is about us. Ethan stood beside her and looked at Derek. For what it's worth, my girlfriend talks about you exactly the same way she talks about our mail carrier, like a neighbor. Melissa gave me an apologetic smile. I'm really sorry. You don't owe me an apology. I hope things get better. So did I. The front door closed behind them. Derek spun toward me. You embarrassed me. They didn't need my help. His shoulders dropped. I was trying to fix this. No, you were trying to erase it. I just wanted everyone to see there was nothing between you. There never was. I know that now. No, if you did, you would have apologized before inviting them. He swallowed. I couldn't. Why? Because then I'd have to admit I was wrong. The sentence hung between us because it was the first completely honest thing he'd said in weeks, and somehow it was also the most devastating. After weeks of arguments, he had finally admitted the one thing I'd suspected all along. This had never been about Melissa. It was about pride. That night, he knocked on my bedroom door again. Clara? What? I made dessert. I'm not hungry. I bought that cheesecake you love. I know. I thought maybe we could watch a movie. I rested my forehead against the door. For 1 second, I remembered the man I'd once spent entire weekends laughing with. The man who danced with me in the kitchen. The man who cried when we bought this house. Those memories hurt precisely because they had been real, but they no longer matched the life we were living. I miss us, he said. So do I. Hope rushed back into his voice. Then come out. I miss who we were, not who we've become. His breathing stopped for a moment. Then he whispered, I don't know how to fix this. I answered with complete honesty, I don't think you can. The following afternoon, my attorney called. I've reviewed everything you sent. The documentation is excellent. I never imagined those words would make me sad instead of relieved. There's one more thing, he continued. If reconciliation is still something you want, it requires one condition. What? Mutual accountability. I thanked him and ended the call. Then I sat beside my window for nearly an hour, watching ordinary life continue outside. People walking dogs, children riding bicycles, Melissa and Ethan planting flowers on their porch. The kind of life I'd thought Derek and I were building. Instead, we'd spent nearly 2 months fighting over something that never happened. And somewhere between the accusations, the locked doors, the broken boundaries, and the staged dinner, I stopped imagining a future with him. Not because I no longer loved him, because I no longer felt safe trusting him with my reality. Once that disappears, love has nowhere left to live. 2 weeks after the dinner, Derek moved out. Not permanently, he insisted. He packed 2 suitcases, loaded them into his SUV, and said he was staying with his older sister, until I came to my senses. I watched from the front porch. You're really choosing a room over us? He asked one last time. No, I'm choosing peace. He drove away without another word. The house became painfully quiet. I expected relief. Instead, the silence finally gave me space to grieve what I'd lost. Not because I wanted him back. Because I was mourning the life I thought we were going to have. 3 days later, my attorney called. Derek retained counsel. They're requesting mediation before litigation. I agreed. Not because I believed it would save us. Because I wanted to know whether the man I'd loved for 8 years still existed somewhere beneath his pride. The mediation was held the following Tuesday. Neither of us looked at each other while we waited. The mediator introduced herself, explained the process, then asked one simple question. What brings you here today? Derek answered first. She destroyed our relationship over a misunderstanding. The mediator turned toward me. And your perspective? I didn't end our relationship because of a misunderstanding. I ended it because every opportunity to correct the misunderstanding was refused. The room went still. Mr. Hayes, the mediator said, did you ask Miss Whitmore to leave the shared bedroom? Yes. Did she admit to inappropriate behavior? No. Did you have evidence she had been unfaithful? No. Did she apologize? No. She nodded slowly. Why was the apology so important? Derek opened his mouth, then stopped. For nearly 30 seconds, no one spoke. Finally, he whispered, I needed her to choose me. For the first time in weeks, he wasn't angry. He wasn't defensive. He simply looked exhausted. The mediator asked gently, how would apologizing prove that? His shoulders slumped. I don't know. That was the most honest sentence he'd spoken in months. The mediation lasted almost 4 hours. By the end, one truth had become impossible to ignore. We had never been arguing about Melissa, or the box, or the guest room. We had been arguing about what Derek believed love entitled him to demand. When he felt insecure, he demanded certainty. When certainty wasn't possible, he demanded obedience. And when obedience failed, he called it betrayal. The mediator closed her notebook. I don't believe either of you is leaving today with the relationship you walked in with. No one disagreed. The separation became official a month later. The paperwork was surprisingly calm. No screaming, no dramatic courtroom confrontation, just signatures, property evaluations, financial disclosures, and conversations that sounded more like business than heartbreak. We agreed that I would buy out Derek's share of the house. I'd saved enough over the years to qualify for refinancing on my own. The day I signed the final documents, my attorney smiled. Congratulations, my attorney said. The word sounded strange under those circumstances. Congratulations usually marked happy milestones like weddings, promotions, or babies, not the legal end of an 8-year relationship. Still, when I unlocked the front door that evening, the house felt lighter. A week later, Derek returned to collect the last of his belongings. He walked slowly through every room, then stopped outside what had once been called the guest room. My room, I corrected gently. He gave a tired smile. I guess it is. He looked inside. The piece Lily had grown nearly twice its original size. The shelves were filled with books. The desk overlooked the window. The room no longer looked like somewhere someone had been sent. It looked like somewhere someone had chosen. I hated this room, he admitted. I know. I thought if I made you uncomfortable, you'd come back. I know. Instead, you built a life without me. I learned I could. He looked down at the floor. I never wanted that. I don't think you knew what you wanted. He didn't argue. As he carried the final box toward the front door, he stopped. Can I ask you something? Of course. If I'd apologized that first week, would we still be together? The question lingered between us. I don't know, I answered honestly. An apology would have saved the argument, not necessarily the pattern. He closed his eyes briefly. I really thought this was about jealousy. It started there. So what was it really about? The moment you decided your feelings mattered more than my truth. He nodded once, very slowly. Then he walked outside. I never saw him again. Life didn't magically become perfect. Some mornings I still reached across the bed before remembering I was alone. Sometimes I'd hear a car pull into the driveway and instinctively think Derek was home. So I started therapy. Not because I blamed myself, but because I wanted to understand why I'd stayed quiet during the earlier warning signs. The questions about male coworkers. The suspicion whenever I smiled at a stranger. The small accusations I'd dismissed as love. One session changed everything. My therapist asked, what would you tell your younger sister if she described this relationship? I'd tell her she deserved better. She smiled gently. So why didn't you deserve the same? I didn't have an answer. Not that day. But I kept searching for one. Spring arrived. I repainted the guest room soft sage green. Actually, I stopped calling it the guest room altogether. It became my study. The room where I read, worked, drank coffee, planned future vacations, and dreamed again. The master bedroom became just that, a bedroom. No arguments attached to it anymore. Melissa and Ethan remained wonderful neighbors. One Friday evening, they invited me over for dinner. Halfway through dessert, Melissa laughed. I still feel guilty about that first dinner. You shouldn't. It was the most awkward night of my life. Ethan raised his glass. To never arguing over cardboard boxes. We all laughed. Real laughter. The kind I hadn't heard in my own home for months. Almost a year later, I found one of the old storage boxes while cleaning the attic. Inside were photographs from the early years Derek and I spent together. Road trips, birthdays, camping weekends, ordinary happiness. I looked through every picture, then carefully placed them back inside. I didn't burn them. I didn't throw them away. They were part of my life, just not my future. Before closing the attic door, I noticed another cardboard box sitting beside it. It was plain, worn, and completely ordinary. I smiled to myself. One ordinary box had once been blamed for destroying a relationship. But a box never had that kind of power. The box had never been the problem. Control, pride, and the refusal to admit a mistake were what truly destroyed us. That's what broke us. If there's one thing I carried forward, it was this. Never apologize just to make someone else's version of reality feel comfortable. When I finally turned off the lights that night, the quiet no longer felt lonely. It felt like freedom.